Hi everybody, it's Catherine Middlebrooks, the founder of BRB Yoga, and today I wanted to come and talk to you about where to begin rehabilitating your body. So last week I was talking about how I think it's a really good idea to treat pregnancy as an injury to the body. It creates so many muscular compensations and changes that we kind of have to rehabilitate it before we start jumping back into all of the activities that we did before we were pregnant. So as I talked about, when you're pregnant, you lose the strength in your core. That results in a lot of compensations like tight back muscles, tight hip muscles, tight outer hips, and weak glutes. So lots of compensations. And those things, if not corrected, can just lead to a lot of imbalances that will eventually lead to injuries. Things like diastasis, prolapse, pelvic organ prolapse, things that we don't want happening in our body. So, given the fact that you have all of these things that are now tight and overcompensating, where do you begin? Now, I'm going to mention that in just a moment, but let me first say, the title of this is a little tongue-in-cheek, right? Pregnancy trashed my body. I, more than anything, believe that pregnancy is a beautiful, natural process. And I think that it is amazing that we can grow and build babies. That being said, I have seen so many women who come out of pregnancy with a body that is completely different than the body that they had before pregnancy. It's just not functioning the way that they want it to or expect it to, in part because of all of these changes that happen to the body during pregnancy. So while I do not want to put the idea that like pregnancy is ruining you, because it's not. These are all things you can heal from. I do want to be really, really honest with the fact that I talk to so many women who are struggling with what their body can't do after pregnancy. Okay, so you're pregnant, then you have the baby. Now you have a weak core, tight back muscles, tight hip muscles, weak glutes, tight hips, right? The body does that to create stability. So where do you begin? What do you start addressing first? Do you start with the core? Do you start with the back? Do you start with the hips? Where do you begin? Well, it's actually very, very simple. The best place to begin is with your breathing. Now let me tell you why. The breath is a magical thing in the body. Our breathing system is so sophisticated and it has so many positive impacts in our body for improving the muscular balance, right? So we have in our chest, we have lungs, then we have our diaphragm, then we have our belly, and at the bottom of our belly we have the pelvic floor. When the breath is working properly, every inhale expands the ribs, drops the diaphragm down. When the diaphragm drops down, the belly expands and relaxes, and the pelvic floor descends and relaxes. So that's what happens on an inhale. Everything relaxes and expands. When we exhale, that's what happens on an inhale. Did I say exhale? That's what happens on an inhale. Then when we exhale, that diaphragm lifts up, the core naturally engages, and the pelvic floor naturally engages and lifts. That's what happens when the body is working properly. However, when we are pregnant, the baby pushes the diaphragm up. The diaphragm can't work anymore. So instead of using the diaphragm, we start using these secondary breathing muscles, and we breathe by lifting the shoulders up and down. So we start breathing pretty shallowly. If we can, after pregnancy, get back to that good breathing pattern, it starts to naturally engage the core and the pelvic floor, right? Hi, Leica. If we can get the breath and the diaphragm working properly, then every inhale naturally relaxes the pelvic floor, naturally relaxes the core. Every exhale engages the core and the pelvic floor. So it starts to bring back that normal resting tone to the core and the pelvic floor, right? So if you start with breathing, you right away start bringing the core and pelvic floor back online. This is huge for the body, because when the core starts to reignite, starts to come back, it allows the back muscles to stop working so hard. It allows the hip flexors to stop working so hard. So as we start building that core strength back up through the breath, it starts letting those overworked muscles work less. So that's one part of why breath is the best place to start, because it's a beautiful system and it works really well when it's working. The other thing is that the diaphragm is this huge muscle, and it's connected to the rib cage and all the way around the bottom of the rib cage. When you are using your diaphragm fully, when you get good breaths, it naturally expands the back body, and this is where the hip flexor attaches, the psoas attaches. It's also where there are a bunch of muscles in the back. So if you're able to get a big full breath, those tight overworked back muscles and hip flexors relax on every single inhale. Every single inhale. So you're taking a big breath that allows those overworked muscles to get a break and allows them to let go of some of that tension they've been holding. So it starts to bring balance back to the muscles. Now, as I said, when we are pregnant, the diaphragm stops working effectively. It just has to. There's not room for it to drop down into the body because there's a baby there. So we start breathing more by lifting the shoulders up and down, and we just start taking really shallow breaths. So what do? The first thing to do is really retrain the diaphragm to work effectively. We literally have to retrain the diaphragm. For many, many women, after they have had a baby, their breath pattern is completely different. Rather than the diaphragm dropping down into the body, it sometimes actually pulls up into the body because they're used to breathing by lifting the shoulders up, and they take the diaphragm with it. So the first thing that I recommend for all postpartum women, and you can be postpartum for 30 years, right? We're all actually postpartum forever once you've had a baby, is to reestablish that solid breathing with full diaphragmatic action. You get that diaphragm to drop down. That will let the core relax, let the pelvic floor relax. Then when the diaphragm pulls back up, the core engages, the pelvic floor engages. But that you have to train. You have to train it. You have to get the breath working to then get this cascade of awesome happenings. Core strength, pelvic floor strength, back muscles relaxing, hip muscles relaxing. So where do you even start? You start with the breath. And I know that that's not always where people want to start. They want to jump back in to higher intensity stuff. But if you skip over the breathing and you move into high intensity stuff before you've retrained the diaphragm to work properly, the breath to work properly, well, you're losing out on the support that the core creates for the body in those high intensity activities, right? If your breath isn't working properly, the core isn't working properly. And so you're basically doing these high intensity activities without support. So start with the breath, get the breath down, and then you will be able to move into all of these things that you love doing. So this is so important for everyone, and I wanted to provide some more guidance on this. So below I'm going to put a link to a free little breath tutorial, breath practice that I created, so that if you would like to start resetting your breathing, get your diaphragm working again, you can do that. So I'm going to pop off now and put that link down below. But one more announcement. Next Thursday is Thanksgiving, and as a thank you to my community and all of you for being here, what I'm going to do is show up early in the morning and do a little free yoga practice so that we can get our body moving, get ourselves in such a great gratitude mindset for spending the day, however you're spending it, with family, with friends, eating lots of yummy food, whatever it is you're doing. I would love to begin that Thanksgiving morning just saying thanks to all of you for being part of this community. So I'll put more details about that on the Facebook page this week. All right, let me know if you have any questions about the breathing. It's a complicated system. It's a lot going on, but it's a very powerful one. All right, guys, have a great rest of your day. Bye.